The guiding principle of this campaign is going to be good stewardship of the city and everyone in it. We have three themes that we're going to follow. First, safety. The safety of every Columbus resident should be paramount in the administration. And we've already started to talk about safety. As some of you know, last week we did a press conference on safety. We talked about the problems with the Columbus City Police Department, the problems with the Columbus City Fire Service, and those problems can be traced back to one source, and that source is City Hall. And it is laid at the doorstep of the mayor, Mike Coleman. It's a failure to plan, it's a failure to think through, it's a failure to be strategic. The fact that we're going to have 400 police officers retire in the next 4 years and no plan to replace them is disgraceful. But that's what we have. The next theme, and we're going to talk about this more next week, but I want to foreshadow a little bit, is schools. Columbus City schools are a disgrace as well. Every child in Columbus deserves the opportunity for a quality education, and the mayor should be the person who uses the bully pulpit of the mayor's office to demand excellence in education for every child in this city. It is not just an educational issue, it's an economic development issue. And the failure of this administration to take a leadership issue on education is truly disgraceful. The third theme of the campaign, services. That whole laundry basket of things that we expect to come out of a good, well-run city hall and city administration. Everything from making sure your streets are plowed, to the garbage is picked up, to the fact that there's economic development planning, not just haphazard development here and there scattershot throughout the city, but economic development planning so that we don't wind up with another urban slum like City Center has unfortunately become. We're going to continue to take the fight to Coleman and City Hall. We've asked them for a series of debates this fall, the north, the south, the east, and the west sides of Columbus, and focused on some key issues such as schools and safety. After 8 years of Mayor Coleman's neglect of the city, he can at least take 8 hours to talk about the things he should have been doing. This campaign is going to center on the lack of leadership from City Hall for this city. And that's exactly what this city deserves, is leadership from City Hall. The mayor should be a leader in this city. And the mayor, as a leader, should be accountable for what happens in this city, good and bad. And unfortunately, we see no accountability coming from City Hall. In fact, every time there's a time when the mayor should stand up and be counted, he's nowhere to be found. The other thing that he should be doing is exercising good stewardship over the city. A good steward is a good public servant. We do not see anyone at City Hall anymore that remembers that they are truly public servants, and that's why they're there. Well, let's turn today then to part of this story, the lack of good stewardship, the lack of accountability, and that is here we sit in an empty shell. What better evidence of poor stewardship of the assets of the city of Columbus than here we are in the world's largest above-ground cavern? Let's talk about the lack of accountability and the lack of leadership and the lack of planning. Anyone sitting in the mayor's chair should have been able to hear the death rattle of City Center starting many years ago. It is during Mayor Coleman's regime that we have watched the decline and descent of this once proud crown jewel of Columbus into an absolute disaster. Mike Coleman ran for mayor in 1999 as Easton was opening. He was mayor in 2001 when Polaris was open. Wouldn't have been too hard as mayor to see that this city center, the beating heart at the center of this city, was already at risk. We were already seeing the signs of heart disease here. This city center should be exactly that. It shouldn't be a diseased, dying heart killing the body of Columbus, which is what it's doing. This has not been a sudden development. As you've seen from the displays here, and the reality of it, we all know, we have watched this dying of City Center step by step by step until now we're in the throes of a death spiral which is going to be impossible to recover from without a vigorous, concerted, important effort to change the direction of City Center. But where's the mayor been for the last 8 years as he's watched the death of the heart of the city? He certainly hasn't been at his post. He certainly hasn't been accountable. He certainly has not been a good steward for the assets of this city. As I mentioned before, the mayor should be using what we call sometimes the bully pulpit to announce themes, to give leadership, to create accountability in the city. You don't hear that from Mayor Coleman on anything, let alone on the city center. Anyone in the mayor's chair, and I mean that, should have seen a number of years ago that the city center was dying, and the death of city center meant that downtown was going to die along with it. It is time to turn this around. We can no longer afford the exodus of retail from downtown that we've seen with City Center and the closing of the old Lazarus across the street. I thought about this a great deal over the weekend, and many of you here in the room remember the reason we developed City Center and we took this area and turned it into a retail district was because the old retail was dying here. When the Union closed and the Lazarus main store became diseased, we decided to undertake radical surgery in this area and replace the heart of the city with now a new diseased heart, dying heart of City Center. That radical surgery led to a vibrant place for many years, to a lot of opportunity here. All of us have fond memories of coming to City Center in the early 90s at the beginning of the Coleman regime. And now no one comes here. As Brad said, it closes at 7, and you take your life in your hands when you come here in the evenings. That's not the way it should be. That is not what we need for the heart of Columbus. This is an absolute disaster. And what have we heard from Mayor Coleman and the gang at City Hall? Nothing but promises, talk about potential redevelopment, talk about change in the future. And why is that? Because they're not focused on the job. Let me give you a really good illustration of what happens when you do have your eye on the ball and you are focused and you are trying to get things done. Many of you probably noticed that our world-renowned retail center folks, the Glimcher Company, that developed the Polaris area not too long ago, announced about a week ago that they're already going to tear down Kaufman's, the site where the Kaufman store was, and redevelop it in a new plan, meeting the changing tides of retail and recognizing that the investment that was made at the time is no longer fitting the needs of today. They promised to have that area torn out and new retail and a new modern plan of retail completed before the end of 2007. Contrast that with City Center. For over 5 years, we've watched this deterioration, the death spiral of City Center, and there's no plan. In his State of the City speech, the mayor indicated that if he has a plan, it's a secret plan, and we're not going to see any fulfillment of that plan until sometime after the bicentennial. By way of contrast, I think that the time is now to face reality. Times change, retail has changed, city development has changed, and we can't sit back with outmoded theories, outmoded ideas, and just sit here and watch this die. And that's what the Coleman administration has done. That's what the gang and city council here in Columbus has done. They did the same thing with Northland, and now they're finally talking about a plan to redevelop Northland after it's been a bombed out, empty zone for over 5 years. Well, the mayor said when he announced that they were going to plan to change Northland that there's going to be a plan at some point, perhaps, to change City Center. Well, the time is now. You can't continue to wait for the future to come to you. You have to be prepared to meet the future. There is a great line in Ecclesiastes which basically says, if you wait for perfect conditions, you will never get anything done. That's what we have here. It's always tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. It will get better. It will change. It will be different. That's not the way to look at it. You have to start, you have to make an effort, you have to get the ball rolling. You can't continue to sit back. I promise you, as mayor, the first day we are in office, we will have a plan to redevelop this site, and that plan will be in execution during the first year of a new administration. It is too important to have the heart of the city dying and diseased to wait until 2012. In 2012, I want you all to join me to stroll through what will be, again, the crown jewel of Columbus. It will be an entertainment and shopping district that will, in fact, rival nothing in the country. It will be the very top tier development that we can possibly have. I will tell you, if our friends at Capital South don't want to go along with this plan in the future, then as mayor, I will instruct the city attorney's office to file an eminent domain case and take City Center back, and we will redevelop it without them. To Mayor Coleman and the gang at City Hall, to our friends at Capital South, to everyone else, I say time is now to act. Time is now to take action here on City Center. And to borrow a line from perhaps my favorite president, Mr. Mayor, tear down this mall. Thank you all so much. Again, we've come full circle. It is time to act. It is time well past for promises.